Welcome back, everybody, to the best and brightest show in the galaxy, the Chatooine Show. And today we're discussing some of the greatest Star Wars that's ever been made. Andor Season 2, Episodes 7 through 9, the Gorman Massacre. I'm Star Wars Only, that's Longa. And of course, this is the Chatooine Show. If you're watching live, leave a like, or if you're watching later, do the same. Help us out, follow us on all the socials, and we'll be back again next week to cover the finale of it. Oh, and side note, we haven't even talked about this at all, Lunga. Tales of the Underworld came out on May the 4th.
I haven't even had a chance to watch it yet.
You haven't even seen it? Oh, you're not missing anything at all. Play.
Well, I mean, literally, it hasn't been disinterest. It's just been time. Tuesday was D&D night, and then last night I did a charter, so I worked late. I didn't get home until late. I watched Andor like in the middle of the day as much as I could during a little break that I had to get caught up on it. And that's where it's at. So I haven't had any fucking time to actually.
Well, and that's kind of the thing with these 3-episode drops is that it is hard to watch them all in one sitting. And even for me, because I work normally very early in the morning. Like most days I wake up like maybe 5 a.m., 5:30 at the latest. And so I like to go to bed around midnight, at least 1 a.m. I don't mind getting a couple hours of sleep. But with this Andor stuff, especially with this 3-episode arc they dropped, I watched the first 2. So I got to episode 8 with the Gorman Massacre and at the end. And then I think it was perfect for me. I went to bed, I went to work, and then I came home and watched the follow-up episode the next day. Because if for some reason having that day break was like a good digestion period for what happened in those 2 episodes. And I'm so shocked that they did the 3-episode drop thing. I know that's a Disney thing and not Lucasfilm, and I know it's to help the numbers, but I really do wonder if this would have been better to release over a short period of time, because a lot of this stuff, there's so much to talk about, there's so much to get to that we didn't even think about. Tales of the Underworld, and the Cad Bane arc, I will say, in that is good. The Ventress one is just fine. Yet again, we watched Bad Batch. We saw her come back to life. They kind of explain it, but I think they make things so much worse by what they do with it. It's just like, oh, now she can kind of cheat death too. That thing everyone in Star Wars has always wanted to do. Now Ventress can just do it willy-nilly. But let's talk about, I'll just say from the onset, this is now, inarguably, the greatest Disney Star Wars product there has been, but also the greatest Star Wars show ever. Not just live action. I'm talking animation too. I love Clone Wars. Clone Wars is my childhood. Even the OG Clone Wars. I know you don't like that one, Lunga, but the micro series, I love that one too. But Andor unequivocally is the best Star Wars content we've had over the past 15, maybe. This is a whole thing that may take some time to get into. Maybe in the past 30 years, it's the best Star Wars.
And with a character that everyone considered a throwaway character, one of Disney's first characters.
I don't think we definitely weren't doing the show when they announced Cassian Andor, but I was definitely doing Star Wars only prominently. This was back in like 2018 when they announced it, maybe 2019.
I know we were talking about it and we're like, who gives a shit about Andor?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do remember that. Because there was a time, mind you, and this is the stuff that does make me feel a little old, even though it was only 5 fucking years ago, because they're doing so much stuff. There was a time the only live action Star Wars shows that we knew about was ironically the best, and what I call Mandor now, which is The Mandalorian Andor. Those were the only 2 at the time. And oh my God, even in my documentary, the first one I did, the Fans versus Disney or something like that, and a lot of people when that was announced that they were doing a Cassian Andor series, myself included, were like, the fuck cares about Cassian Andor?
And it's not like I didn't like him. I liked his character in Rogue One. I thought Rogue One was a really good movie. It was one of my favorites. Yeah. No, but here's the thing. I like this character in the movie. You know what I'm saying? But I'm like, how much is there? I mean, really, it's like, was he while I liked him in the movie, it's like, was he that intriguing to want a whole prequel of him.
Yeah, no, it made no
But I
sense.
did
And
not
now,
have any idea that it's really I mean, Andor is the center of it, obviously, okay? But it's because the way the show was written, which we're gonna get into, is he is just the focal point. It's
hmm
everything that's going on around him and through him, and the way they talk about the force, how it flows through you, and then and all this shit,
surrounds
and
us,
and then
binds us, penetrates us.
and what the one thing we see in this show, hint hint hint, teaser teaser teaser, don't say it. I do this all the time. You always like going to discussion about, we're saving that as we get into the discussion.
Hmm
But
That's
the one
fair.
thing they talk about to where he's like this linchpin. He's not the guy. He's not Luke Skywalker that does this. He's not this, but he's that guy who's that little pin in the middle that if you pull it out, the whole house of card falls. That
He's a necessity. It's part of
yeah.
his destiny. It it's beautiful, honestly. So did I already ask you what your initial reaction to this was? Because I mean, this seems like so much to discuss because there's episode 7, 8, and 9, and each one kind of covers a different thing. Each one is kind of its own unique part of this chapter, but episode 8, the Gorman massacre, was the biggest one, of course. And before we even get into, all the nitty-gritty of it, I do want to say that the episode 8 and episode 9, I believe, are both now in the top 20 highest rated episodes of television ever. That's big, man. I think that's huge. And that's one of those things where like people who are saying that, oh, this show is being received poorly, nobody's watching, nobody cares. And it's like, dude, you're missing out on some of the best, if not the best Star Wars we've had in I don't know how long. I mean, it's really been a long time since I felt this way. So when you watch this, the 3 episode arc, what was the biggest reaction you took away? What was the end of the Gorman massacre with I want to talk about the mom stuff later, but because that hit. But what was did you feel like you were gonna cry at any point? Did you feel heartbroken? Did you feel sadness, fear? I mean, because there's so much that's going on.
I've seen a lot of people talking about, oh, how sad they were. Oh God, it was so sad. It was so sad. Not that it wasn't. It was. I felt it. I'm like, oh shit. You know what I mean? Of all the things that go on. And what we kind of brought up last time we're talking about is how they take these little characters that are not that important and they make them so real and so important.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of those gores, that it was like that. It's like, holy shit, the busboy who now is the front desk guy, and the father who is the leader of their little, but all these little characters that they did so much. And yes, I felt sadness, but I didn't get the lump in the throat feeling. It was more of like one of these, like,
Yeah.
holy
I had that.
fuck.
I had that through a lot of scenes.
Yeah, it was like that. And it's the promise of how bad the Empire was, what we've been told through the 50-year history of Star Wars, you know what I mean? That we never saw. The closest we got to it was what Darth Vader did, what Anakin did in the prequels, right? He killed kids. That's the closest we got to it, right? But we never saw the Empire as a hegemony and as a force in itself, a collective. How evil it was. We just heard about it.
Yeah,
and
you really
it
get to
was
see the gears turning in
full
this big
display.
machine. Yeah,
Right.
and that's something people have always talked about in the fandom, at least over I would say the past 10 to 15 years, the narrative of, was the Empire good? I mean, that became a big kind of topic out of nowhere where like a lot of diehard fans would discuss, well, how bad is it really? Little Order's not that bad. But through this show, because it doesn't just explore Cassian Andor, but it really is about the rebellion versus the Empire and how
Yeah, you know what?
all started.
The Germans in the 30s and 40s had a little order is not that bad.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so on the nose in Star Wars. They did a first and final order. I mean, they're committed to order, I guess. But
yeah.
I will say when I mean, I put it out on Twitter and I think the kids call it did numbers or something like that. I definitely had a lump in my throat at the end of the whole Gorman massacre. But what you were doing, having the hand over the mouth, the jaw dropping through episode 8, I really felt. I mean, I had to stop. I was like, I do I need to go get a cigarette and go smoke to kind of like a real Gorman would, because I'm assuming they're all French and they sip espresso blue milk outside the cafes and smoke whatever cigarettes are called in Star Wars land or
Yeah.
Gorman. But it really, man, it hit so many emotional notes. And the closest thing, there's a couple great memories I have in my life of Star Wars, and we all have them. But a lot of the big ones are, of course, seeing something as it comes out, going to see Revenge of the Sith or The Phantom Menace in theaters, seeing The Force Awakens after Star Wars has been gone, it's at episode 7 and all that stuff. For us, The Mandalorian, we covered that on the show as it was happening, seasons 1 and 2. That was a really great time to be a Star Wars fan. And it kind of breaks my heart because this one isn't getting the same attention that The Mandalorian was getting, because it's been so many years since that has started and everything. But it is a privilege to be able to see this in real time,
bro,
and
I
feel this.
I hate it. I hate it that it keeps cropping up, and I don't want to sound like the people I hate, but I'm not saying this in a negative way. I'm not saying, oh, people are too stupid to get it. That's not what I'm saying. I feel that this intellectually is too, like, the way people complain about the politics and the prequels. Okay, it's like that was nothing. That was like that was Saturday morning cartoon politics. in the prequels.
People talk about how deep that is. Oh, this is how liberty dies with thunderous applause. It's like any politician could say that about anybody ever, any government or authoritarian.
That was so
empire.
cliche, bare bones,
absolutely
political stuff. But say a bunch of big words, administrative stuff. And trade war and blah blah blah.
We need to feel your motion to address the validity of the accusation by allowing the commission to explore this. Like,
exactly.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Exactly. You listen to someone in Congress. You just changed a few words to make it Star Warsy, and it was more bureaucracy than politics. That's what I will say. Okay, the storytelling combined with the deep character building that happens despite year jumps and stuff happening off screen in those years. It takes a level of understanding a narrative style that I think some people are not going to have, and it's going to bore them.
And that's one that kills me. And I think what this is doing, and I'm kind of glad you brought this up, is I think it's kind of breaking the mind of some Star Wars fans. Because one thing, and this is where I really hate to, you're talking about the elitist thing. I think it is undisputable always that the original trilogy is just better than the prequels. I don't care how much you love the prequels. That's one of those things. I'm like, I'm sorry, you can't win that argument. And it's not one of those intellectual elitist things, but it is like saying you like the whole Peter Griffin thing. You like the Money Pit more than you like the Godfather. It's like, you're entitled to your opinion, but you realize you're getting your steak well done and putting A1 sauce on it. All right, like, you have the palate of a child. Not trying to be rude, but you're not there yet. And that's what we're seeing with Andor, because for years, a lot of these prequel-esque fans and a lot of people who dislike Disney have been saying, oh, you don't understand the politics or the depthness of the prequels. Oh, I want grittier and darker Star Wars. And this has really hit every single note of what a lot of Star Wars fans would want, except for the Force and the lightsabers. And they just are like, oh, that's not good. And it's like they don't get it. It is.
Well, that's it. If they don't see lightsabers, and the Force, to a lot of people, it's not Star Wars. Okay, it's blah.
And I shouldn't say they don't get it, because that's an awful way to just be like, oh, you don't understand. You just don't get it. Like people say with The Last Jedi. People always said that with The Last Jedi.
And the Acolyte. This is what I was going to get into. The Acolyte fans who are on the internet saying, you just didn't get it. You just didn't get it, bro. It's like, you think that was deep? Yes, this is writing.
This is yes.
Okay.
And what's crazy too is that what we got is actually extremely rare, with someone like Tony Gilroy giving us one of the highest rated episodes of all time. I mean, it truly was but even with season 1, like I want to hear your take on this too, but I think season 2 is definitely better than season 1. And I think season 1,
but together they still tell a great story. Season 1 was the setup.
Season 1 to get to season 2. Absolutely, you have to have season 1 to get to season 2. And now season 1 means a lot more. Even small things like Will and Cassian being like, what do they say about like what was stone and sky? That's what they say. And you get that, and only those two
Yeah.
can get that because they're both from Fair. It's that small stuff that has that payoff later on,
Well, and
and it's not
Bix
member
is from there
berries.
too.
Oh yeah, Bix, of course, yeah, but like from the guys who were on the Gorman massacre and everything, those two
Yeah.
were there, and there's that feeling, they're not romantically involved, so it is a spiritual thing that these people stay connected throughout all of these years, and that's what I loved about this too, is that it had a hint in this season of spiritualness, and that was one of the first things me and you talked privately that like I wanted to talk about was like the whole force healer thing in that first episode, the seventh episode, and even with the seventh episode in general, I feel like that one, in my opinion, was actually the weakest of the series so far. Maybe not the series like the first season, but out of the second season, that one was very slow, and I know what it was doing because it was setting up the tension of Cassian needs to go kill
It was
Deidre,
all about the
and
tension. Yeah.
yeah, it was building it up. So I absolutely understand it,
Well,
and I completely it's great. Oh, go ahead.
yeah. Well, one of my biggest issues with that I had with this arc and that episode specifically of all of them has nothing to do with the force healing. Okay, I get it. We were going to hear something about the force at some point. We knew that. Okay,
We had to.
It was going to come into play, even in this minor role. And there's a lot of people who are still very confused. A lot of people are still angry about Rey and the force healing. Where did that come from? Because they're fucking ingrates and they don't realize that it was created by fucking Timothy Zahn and Heir of the Empire. Force healing has been around in the EU for a very long time. Now, you can make your arguments that, oh, Disney made it different, or I didn't like the way Disney did it. Sure. Okay, whatever. But force healing's been around. So it doesn't bother me that much. And it didn't feel shoehorned in. It was a legitimate thing. He had an injury. They're starting this. We've seen how many times he's gotten close to death and injured, so many times. So it makes sense. And he's got achy shoulder, so it makes sense. And I liked how it wasn't about the force as a power. Okay. It was about the, is it the cosmic force, right? This would be the or the life force, more cosmic force, I think, because it was more overarching about his
cosmic force,
role.
Like the midichlorians and stuff like that.
But it was more about his role in the whole tapestry of what's to come. And I like how they played it. So that didn't bother me so much. What did bother me, and it has to do with the time jump, and I don't mind the time jump. The time jumps are good, and there's a lot of stuff that happens in the time jumps that I think are stuff that we don't need to see play out. Okay, like my friend John, a nerd reactor, bless his heart. He's like, I don't like, I feel like there's relationships that come up out of nowhere, and they kind of just hinted at it, and I'm like, well, no, you see it, and then you get a year later, and that's the natural development of it. Okay, so it didn't come out of nowhere; it just happened off screen in that year.
Becoming part of the Gorman resistance,
and he's like, I want to see the passion. And I'm like, no, fuck that. Because if I had a whole episode of Bix and fucking Andor falling in love, I'd be fucking annoyed. Or if I had a whole episode of Syril and Dedra, I'm like, of falling in love.
Because
like,
what
no,
that
fuck
is,
this shit.
what that is Lucas tries to go over and above beyond in the prequels to explain the love that Anakin and Padme had.
Right.
This trusts the audience to just understand things.
To have an emotional intelligence.
Yes, and that,
okay,
and that honestly is a big thing of what it is. Of like even I know we'll talk about the mom stuff later, but like a lot of people I've seen, at least when I put on Twitter, like, again, that kind of choked me up. Some people are like, oh, I don't care about her because she's basically like a Nazi and everything, and I'm like, at the end of the day, this is still some dude's mother, you gotta understand, like, people they don't think like that.
Well, here's
sad,
the thing, it also and even right-wing people should understand this. It's showing that even if you believe in the wrong things, that you have a humanity.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They touched on that in Lord of the Rings. Faramir's like, you wonder if he, had a home, if he was happy, what he would do if he really wanted to come out here and fight. People act like they would do all these right things in history because, you're living in the present and everything. But if you were born in Germany back you dealt the cards you dealt with and everything. You always pray you make the right decisions, but you don't know stuff. This poor mom is just ignorant to the world. She knows nothing.
And the reason why
world.
people, again, not going on to too much of a tangent on Mount, but the reason why people say, it's a slippery slope with how people complain about immigration and this and that and how this very nationalistic tone we have now in our country, it's a slippery slope because I'm not saying Trump is Hitler. I'm not saying he's a fascist. Okay. But that is how it started. It started with people saying, yeah, you know what? We don't need all. We need Germany should be for Germans. Okay, we don't need all. That is how it started. So it's not out of the scope of reality for people to say, well, this is a slippery slope. We should be careful. Okay.
Well, and it's something every country has dealt with since the dawn of time of like multiculturalism, or do we?
You gotta find that. You gotta find that happy middle ground. You can't just have the borders open and let anybody who the fuck they want just come over, but you can't close it down and shut it down completely and deport everybody either. You gotta find that nice happy medium and. But at any rate, not to go too far off that. But the thing that bothered me with the time jump is the development of Yavin 4 as a rebel hub. And not just a development of, not just the physical development of the planet as the hub, the gathering of the rebellion. We went from, Luthen doing his thing, Saw doing his thing, to in this year, suddenly there's this coalition that basically Mon and Baal had put together. Okay. Mm-hmm. And they're all gathering on Yavin. Okay. And the part about that bothers me is we like they kind of did it in Rebels, and it almost seems like you have to know Rebels to have it make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And we jumped right to that. And we went from Luthen being Luthen and Andor doing things to Andor now suddenly being, I'm part of the Rebel Alliance. I don't want to do shit for Luthen anymore. And Vel, like, we're not Luthen's puppets anymore. We're part of something real. And, and it's like, wait, hold on. That was too fast of a jump for me. That's the one thing that felt a little off. Now, it didn't spoil the arc for me. I was able to suspend that disbelief because the rest of it was so good. Okay, so it did its job. But if I'm going to look at it with a critical eye, that bothered me a little bit. It was a little too much of a jump. Like individual relationships, I don't give a shit. You can gloss over in that year. Okay, we were here, now we're in love. That's fine. But a juggernaut of what becomes Rebel Alliance now suddenly, and all these people's perspectives suddenly switching with not any explanation, was like kind of weird to me.
I don't know. I feel I didn't feel that at all with it. It's not really an issue I particularly had. The way I accepted it was just because there's so many characters to focus on as it is, that focusing on something like this is really more about Mon Mothma and Bail. And truly, because I know they're, it's 12 episodes and it's long and everything like that. I do think if they had more seasons, like if it literally was just even 3 seasons instead of 2, something like that absolutely would have been fleshed out. Because season 1 is not a year gap in between each 3 episodes, but season 2 is. That's clearly because they were going to do 5 seasons. They cut it down to 3, then they cut it down to 2.
Let me give you the perfect. The biggest issue of me is how Andor went from being helping Luthen to now wanting to be a part of this force, right? With no real other than just saying, okay, the thing with Bix at the end of the last arc and how things happen, he's like tired of it. He doesn't want to deal with them with Luthen anymore. That's kind of the layman, kind of easy explanation for it, right? Yeah. I think it would have made more sense in this arc to have him still kind of working with Luthen, not happy about it, right? And through everything still plays out as it plays out, and everything that he sees, and everything that he does, going to Gorman and then helping Mon Mothma. All of that is what makes him really want to be part of this rebellion on Yavin. You know what I'm saying? Even before Mon Mothma, just because he, like I said, he's there, and then because Wilman comes and he's like, oh, Deidre, we need to kill Deidre, and he's like, you know what? Yeah, let's go, because I need freedom. I can't have someone tell me what to do. That again, it just seemed very jarring. How you went from hating being with Luthen, being part of this, dude comes back, inspires you to be very rebellious again against the rebellion,
but it's
and
not
then you
just
take
Gorman,
off.
though. It's Bix as well and everything. It's
Bix
the whole
talked
Force
him into
healer
it, yeah.
situation, and Bix felt that inspiration from the Force healer. Like the whole thing with Cassian and Luthen has been building since, in my opinion, like the first or the third episode when they meet. Is Cassian constantly is disagreeing with him in the way he's going about things, and you saw that with almost everybody who works for Luthen, even Clea, And so I didn't have really any issue with it because I didn't interpret it the same way you do. I didn't see this as Cassian and Luthen are no longer working together, because when Wills talks to him, he's like, Luthen wants to know how you're doing, and if you're ready, kind of thing. As it seems like an open door policy, and even with his relationship with the Rebel Alliance, General Draven, I guess he's the guy from Rogue One. It was cool to see him come back. And this, he even tells Cassian,
and
you
Dodonna.
can't just come.
We didn't see him, but he was there. They mentioned him. They name dropped Dodonna.
Who?
Dodonna. He was in the fucking New Hope.
Which the old white guy with the beard?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know his name. That's cool. I'm glad he was. Shout out to the old guy. May the Force be with us. But yeah, no, with Cassian and the whole Luthen thing, I feel like that had been building for a while. And with Willman coming back and asking about it and everything, it felt like there was still this relationship. And like I was bringing up with the General Draven guy, is he was like, look, if you're gonna keep doing stuff like this, like, you might not be able to come back. And Cassian kind of gave him a look like, you know where I stand on this. And I think for Cassian, it's just he wants to help in any way he possibly can, and he's willing to do that dirty work. So if that involves Luthen, great. And he even tells Woman's like, Luthen's not the enemy. And Cassian's like, it would be easier if he was. So I don't think they had this falling out.
I'm not saying I didn't get it. I did. It was fine. I just thought it could have been handled a little bit better. That's all.
I do think some of the stuff with like the Force healer stuff, that's something I thought could have been handled a little better. That's what I didn't really like about this 7th episode, is that there are a lot of moments that you have to kind of
Goldman has something to say to you.
He still has this weird, false revisionist history that The Last Jedi wasn't delayed by 6 months from May 2017.
And by the way, you spelled it wrong, Goldman. It's 2 N's.
Now he's a fake
D-O. It's like Donna would do in front of it. So it's
this is what I hate about the Star Wars fandom. I can't tell you how many times that's happened. Like, oh, you actually didn't reference Darth Revan's appearance in the SWTOR series. If you'll realize he had a hilt curved blade in that one, it's like, shut the fuck up.
Actually.
But the whole Force healer thing, I feel like, especially with episode 7, and the reason I wanted to even touch on any of this before we got into the greatness of Gorman Massacre is because there's so much to get to. I wanted to get episode 7 out of the way just because it's such a small little note. This is the last thing I want to say about episode 7 because I don't feel like there's much to talk about. But the Force healer thing, I do think slowed down that episode in not a jarring way, but in a way where you're like, oh, okay, like what's kind of, it was constantly like, what are we doing here the whole time? That's how I felt. I liked how Cassian doubted the spirituality of everything, how Bix believed in it. I like how the Force healer was like, you actually have something, and I don't really know what it is, but I can kind of feel it. And unlike these other rebels, you actually believe. Even though Cassian's saying he doesn't believe, she knows deep down who he is as a person. He does believe in the overall thing with the rebels.
And that whole line of he has somewhere to be.
Yes,
which is Scarif, obviously.
And it's all building up to something. It's all building, and that's what she says. He's just adding luggage to him, and so I loved every aspect of that. I just thought the whole thing with it slowed it down so much, and literally like the whole time you're like, did Bix really set this up or not? And I know she didn't. I mean, clearly she did not, but still, with her even healing Cassian, that was one of those things where I was like, this brings up a lot of questions that I think makes it not unnecessary, but didn't need to bring up a lot of these questions.
No, but you see, now this is like where you didn't think that what I said previously.
You're fair.
I'm the opposite side, because here's the thing. It's an intentional slowdown. Okay?
Yeah.
It's an intentional slowdown to say big shit's coming, and you're not just accidental. Okay? You're important for a reason because of who you are. And Luthen touches on that. You were always there. So I was lucky that you were always there when I needed you. And Ferrix on Eldani, and he listed everything that you were just every time I needed you, you were there. You showed up.
Yeah.
And it wasn't luck. It was what? The will of the Force.
The Force. It was his destiny and everything. Yeah, I get that.
So it was a thread. It started with her doing that. I mean, it actually started before that, but it started with her doing that, and it threaded its way through everything. He was there for Mon, and even with that, I like how they Filoni haters, I don't know if you're among the people who believe this, are pissed because they're like, of course, Dave can't retcon any of his own shit. He has to find a way around it. I can't retcon Mon's speech from Rebels, so let's have it be 2 speeches that the first one no one heard.
Dan Gilroy said about that. Dan Gilroy was like, do I really have to include this in the fucking speech or something like that? And that's where that elitist stuff comes in, where you're like, you understand, as Tony and Dan Gilroy writing the show, they're like, oh my God, this shit is so fucking corny. Like, you're telling me I have to commit to a fucking kids animated series?
Yeah, it was on Disney XD, for Christ's sakes. I mean, it's... Yeah.
But Dave Filoni's peak Star Wars, George Lucas.
And the best line is when they tell Andor, you're going to want to hear this, and he says, I already heard it. He was literally saying what the Gilroys were saying. And listen, we all saw Rebels. Okay, we saw it. It's not the big deal. The speech we gave is the gist of that one, just better written.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. This is the speech for adults who know anything about the world. And then, Filoni, you go make your little kids show appealing to the, diehard of your fandom and everything. But okay, let's get off of episode 7. I do want to get into the whole Gorman massacre and everything like that. Damn, I'd even tackle this bad boy. That truly was the best hour of Star Wars television we've had in a very, very long time.
The tension, it
kept building, bro.
Like building and building.
And one thing I tried to explain to people in my video, in my review about it, is like, especially
it was narrative edging.
Yes, a lot of people aren't in those kind of like situations of like maybe a riot or the kind of chaos and everything. But if you have been, you do feel that. You feel that tension of like, and sometimes nothing happens. That's the beauty of sometimes life, is that normally everything's okay, everything works out. But when you feel that tension building, that's normally a sign.
And you're waiting. You're waiting for it.
You're waiting. And what surprised me is, and we'll go through the whole Syril stuff as it ties in through, I guess, throughout the entire Gorman massacre. Mm-hmm. But the start of it, of him piecing things together, of Deidre trying to tell him, you need to go off the planet, you need to leave. She kisses him. You feel it. She has anxiety about it.
And it was but it was a forced. It wasn't just anxiety. It was a forced. The kiss was forced. She didn't know how to convince him, and she figured, when you can't go to her head, go through their dick. Give him a kiss, that'll make him change his mind. Because this works. It's worked so far. And the sad part about it is she did care about him. There's some people who are thinking that she didn't care about him. She did. She did care about him.
She loved him. She absolutely loved him.
But the issue is she was trapped, and then she realized too late that she's like, oh, I want to bring him along because he can help me on this. And then she's like, oh shit, I put him in a position that he's not going to be comfortable with, and she couldn't get out of it. Mm-hmm. And
she couldn't explain it. She didn't know what to say.
Because she couldn't. She wasn't supposed to say anything because the insurgents, even if
she could,
were Empire
kind of against
agents.
At this point, I feel like
they weren't the rebels that Cassian's group that he thought he was going after. It was Empire. It was the Imperial agents doing it's not red herring. What's the term for it? False flags or something like that. They're doing, kind of false flag things. They were like what the United States did in Central America and shit, acting like they were the rebels doing it purposely to get stuff going. And he thought he was there to catch these outside rebels. And the whole plan all along was to use the Gormans to do it and then kill the Gormans. And she knew that, and she didn't know how to tell him because she couldn't tell him. And what I said last week, I go, when he was on that bridge, I go, he looks like he's really associating with these Gormans. Mm-hmm. And we see that he felt for them, like big time.
Yeah, he lived amongst them for what, 2-3 years, something like that. Was making that his daily routine and everything. What got me the most is when he figured it out. And what I love about it is once again, you have to respect the audience and expect them to just understand things. You don't have to spell everything out to them. I wish I could just wish away my feelings. I don't need to hear that. Sometimes a look is really all you need to see the gears turning in their head.
I hate sand.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you, Annie. Keep going. What else you got to say, honey? But Syril, he has these revelations of what's happening. And he's a scrawny little dweeb throughout the entire series, but he always wants validation. and he, in his mind, wants to do the right thing by the Empire. And when he finds out his girl is cheating on him with these lies, basically, yo, he snaps and
and
starts
using him.
choking her. That is when my jaw dropped.
Yeah.
And that is how I
And
know
not
this
only
is such a
that,
well-written series.
and not only that, remember how she almost died in the first season where he saved her.
Yes, yes.
She was being choked.
She was gasping for air
Yeah.
and everything like that. Like, and even then there was this tension in the room with them of like, oh my gosh, like, are they gonna fight, make out? Like, are they gonna get jumped and killed and everything like that? Like, constantly these two have kind of been there for each other.
And it was
in a
this
way.
allegory for her that ever since she's been in this position, it's been a stifling, oppressive, suffocating job that she has.
As the suit gets
and she
nicer,
added that.
It just gets tighter and tighter, you know? And it's funny too, because he tailors his own, stuff. And, I think true love is admiration. You take a little bit from them, they take a little bit from you. She started tailoring her stuff, I think, a little slightly as she started dating Syril, And I loved the relationship because honestly, even after he chokes her like the psychotic fucker that he is, she still loves him. She's like, did he leave?
She wanted him back.
Where's he at? She's like, go get
him.
You better go get him right now. And I don't really know if
because she was desperately trying to fix it. It'll be good for us. It'll be this. And then when she realized she fucked up is when he's getting mad at her and she snaps back with, you didn't mind the promotions.
Yeah.
And that's when she realized, oh shit, I fucked up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
baby, honestly, please don't go out there.
That line, I believe was a straw. That's what made him walk away. Was that line. When he heard that, all right, you don't give a shit about me. I'm done.
Well, I don't even think it was. It's not that it just hurt, and he's upset with her. It hurt because it was true. He was so blinded by everything he wanted and everything he was trying to accomplish. And even when Partagrass, or whatever the hell the guy's name is, Kybin from Game of Thrones, was like, "Oh, excellent, what, Cyril?" He's like, this might be the proudest day of my life, And she's like, "Oh, I'm happy for you, babe."
And that was him just trying to keep him in line. It wasn't even like he did a good job. You could tell that it was just a pat on the head.
Sometimes you got to know your subordinates and everything. Yeah. And some people, you remember that Friends episode where all the guys in the office are jealous because the boss keeps slapping Chandler's ass, but no one else. Sometimes you got to slap Cyril's ass and be like, "Good boy, get out there."
Because here's the thing: he thought, I'm an important cog. I'm here to find these outside instigators, right? And no, his job was to keep the Gormans distracted. That's what his job was. To keep them distracted, to not realize that the Empire was doing stuff. And what really got him is they weren't telling him anything that was going on. His own girlfriend wasn't telling him anything that was going on. And he finds out from their rebel leader who ends up being the one who Rip. We haven't even said it, right? Rip Syril.
Oh yeah, Cyril's dead. My boy got.
The old man, the Gorman leader that Enza's father. He's the one who told him. They're landing these things. The miners just what's going. So and that's when Syril put it all together. What the fuck? How much did I not know?
Yeah, he knows nothing. He knows nothing about the whole situation. And that is where what we were talking about earlier, the beauty of the evil of the Empire in the series. Even the way they set up the massacre, where it's like, we're going to get a bunch of Imperial cadets fresh out the academy, and we're going to murder one of them in broad daylight. Do it from a certain angle to make it seem like they would think it came from the sky on this little high tower with the flag, shoot him, and then that's it. All chaos breaks loose.
Are the men ready? They're barely boys. And that guy was fighting it. He's like, why do we got these kids here? These guys are not ready.
Oh, even Deidre was upset with it. She's like, you brought me children. Like these guys.
Because they were supposed to. They were supposed to overreact.
Exactly.
That was the whole point.
And that's where she started getting that anxiety of like, oh, I understand what we were trying to do here. I didn't realize the layers we were trying to set it up. And even her boss, Kybin, is like, hey, sweetheart, you got to calm down. All right. Keep your composure, because you could see it building.
Remember your promotion. Remember your promotion.
Yeah,
Remember
yeah.
everything that you're here for.
He's like,
It's
this
all
is
about
going
your
to be
career.
nice at the end of the day and everything. And you know what's funny too? We haven't seen Krennic in the past like 6 episodes, so I know in the next arc we're going to see him, and they're going to talk a little bit about what's happened with Gorman and whatnot. But when the
Because they
massacre
would have
actually
destroyed
started
the
happening,
planet and mined it by that point, most likely. And
oh yeah,
because they have
that's a whole
everything
other
needed.
thing too. A whole year's
Yeah.
going to pass in this next one, and so K2 will, and that's another thing we'll talk about at the end. But K2 and Cassian will have been together for like a full year by the time we get to the next one and everything. But the Gorman massacre itself, when everything started going off, one of the only movies I could really think of as the equivalent was Saving Private Ryan with D-Day. You know, Tom Hanks is just shell shocked and looking around and everything, and he's in shock. He's just like, oh my god. And you see that with Syril, and you just see the chaos going around. And one thing I loved about it the whole time is Cassian's just got his composure. Like Cassian's like literally just standing at one point and just waiting for his shot and everything, because he's so used to all this chaos by this point.
Yeah. And he just kept
the
his eye
difference.
on her in the balcony the whole time. He would look sideways, but it's in so much. He was so focused on that everything else, you know, was he could just navigate through it and ignore it. And Syril was so fucked up by what happened that they walked within 3 feet of each other.
Yes, in that one shot, and even pans a little bit where it starts following Syril. He stops, and then Cassian passes him on the left, and then the shot goes right back the way Syril came up, the way Cassian's going down. That is fucking phenomenal.
Shot selection is ridiculous. It
not
tells a story
that's
just with the camera, just with the angles.
Well, and that's the stuff that's not. We talk about stuff being forced in Star Wars, or member berries and stuff like that. Like the whole Yavin thing. People could say that's not a member berry, because what's happening, that is natural to the story, because we know what happens anyways. With these two, we don't really know. Well, we know Cassian's going to survive no matter what, but Syril, we didn't know. So when this Gorman massacre's going on, and the fact that Cassian even goes back, the whole question the entire time is, is he going to run into Syril? Like, they've been doing this, kind of. These two are kind of polar opposites entirely of each other. Yeah, and so
not only
each other.
Here's the funny thing: they're polar opposites, but they're mirrors of each other. Think about their story throughout
absolutely,
this.
Absolutely. Cassian is.
You took two guys that diverted, but for the exact same stuff happened to them, pretty much. Just they went in opposite directions. He went, deep into the Empire, and he went into this rebellion kind of stage.
Well, and both of them basically only had mothers growing up too. Yeah. Because Cassian's adopted father died when he was like a teenager or something like that. Maybe he was an adult, I think, when it happened. I don't think it was that long ago. But still, they're mommy boys. They have a special connection with their mother, Marva, and I don't know Cyril's mom's name. I cannot remember.
Edna.
For the life of me.
Edna.
No, that's the lady from Incredibles. That's who you're thinking of.
I thought that was her name. I really think it was
That'd
Edna.
Be a dumbass coincidence. Oh my god, come on, Tony. You couldn't come up with a better name than Edna. It's a human name. That's like an Earth name. Edna. Sounds like a secretary.
Edie. Sorry.
Edie. Okay. That makes more sense. All right. Yeah, Edie and Marva, completely polar opposites too, but do mirror each other as the mothers of both of these significant characters. And so as the massacre is going on, Syril has a Saving Private Ryan moment. And I got to ask you, what
silence.
Did you think? The silent moment. Here's what I think, and this is one of the beautiful things about something like this, is him thinking in that moment makes you think. What is he thinking of? What's going on? And for me, and you could throw this back at me and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, or what you thought was going on in his mind. I think he came to the revelation that Andor was there while he was having that moment. I think close to the end, he was like, this is the same shit. Oh, like what the fuck am I? Like there was something in that Cassian Andor guy's here. And I think eventually he saw him. I think there was something to that.
Nope. I'll tell you exactly what my interpretation was. He was in the middle of all of it. Everything was going around. He was walking aimlessly, and then the Private Ryan did that it's a very important tool in movie making, where the silence happens, where you basically become overwhelmed by everything that's going on around you.
You're in shock, and you're just taking it all.
You're in shock. You're overwhelmed. You don't know where to think, what to do. And he was in that moment. He didn't know, what am I going to do? What am I just going to stand here and die? Am I going to go back? Am I going to maybe help them? He did not know what to do. And then when he turned and saw Andor, all the anger that he had up to that moment exploded. That was his target. That was his. If there was one constant he had, was I need to get Andor. Because you remember in season 1 how upset Andor. And
that's why I thought in this that was the back to reality dropping pin for him.
When he saw it, it focused. He's like, okay, you know what? If I don't do anything, if I die here today, I'm killing him.
Another beautiful thing too is it's sort of like poetry. They sort of rhyme. He saved Deidre again through another.
Yeah, without even realizing,
without even knowing.
Let's talk about this for a moment too. Who thought Syril had that much oomph in him? That man fought like a motherfucker.
First of all, Cassian needs to take jujitsu lessons. I mean, honestly, I saw the position. If a man is on,
but it made it a real fight. If you took two people like they're not. We're used to these action movies where people are these trained, like super fighters and they can handle anything, and they're just
these
dudes.
Guys aren't martial artists.
They're just dudes. They know they scrap in the back alley. That's all they know how to do.
Well,
I mean, Syril doesn't even know how to do that.
How to fight a little bit, but the way they
but it's back alley.
He got caught off guard.
Yeah, that part of it too. He got caught off guard, but still, it was another Private Ryan move, like with the knife. When he ended up stabbing.
God, that scene is hard to watch, man. That's one of those ones where you're like, I might have to.
But when they were slamming each other into the wall, and then he elbows him in the back, and you saw how tired they got tired. You don't usually see people in a fight get tired. After the fight, they're like, but like during the fight, they're like they have all the energy in the world. They're not tired at all.
And especially with Cassian, this felt like such a real fight too, because Cassian did know a little bit more what to do. But first of all, Syril tackled him, which isn't the big deal. But then, you have to kind of really watch this stuff, and I think that's what the beauty of the directing is Cassian doesn't even throw a punch at him for a second. Like when he takes him down, he looks up and looks at Syril to double check on who it is, where he's like, "Wait, what the hell is going on?"
And they sum
Syril
it
just
up.
Punches him.
Oh, they sum it up so beautifully. Go ahead and talk about the fight. I don't want to interrupt this, but because I want to get at the end of the fight. Go ahead.
Because as a martial artist, this shit is it's intense for me. Cassian got his ass kicked for a little bit. Syril really got him with the down and dirty. He punches him as he looks up to recognize who the hell this guy is. Then he slams his head into the concrete. Cassian gets a couple moves, but as Cassian gets up, and this is the thing, I as a martial artist, I've seen. When you get into the ring, there's one set of rules. When you're out in the streets, it's different. When it's life or death, it's even more different. So Cyril's throwing shit at him. It gets intense. And Cassian doesn't really lose the fight. He kind of gets away and makes a smart decision to avoid the blaster fire. But Syril gets the drop on him. Cyril's the smarter one throughout the whole thing. Gets the gun on him. And that's
we know why. Because Syril had a goal. His goal was to kill him. Andor was like, the fuck is going on? I don't even know what's going on right now.
Yeah, Cassian was just trying to survive. It was just another day where he's like, all right, some guy's attacking me. I got to kill him now. He's just going through the motion again. And that's where something like this, that simple scene, that simple exchange of dialogue, only one line. And there's 3 characters in the situation, mind you, too. Yeah. That makes it even deeper. It's not just these 2. Is Cyril's holding a gun at him, There's that moment and Cassian, you see the defeat in his eyes. We know he's not going to die, but he doesn't know that. And he thinks this is it. And he's just like, who are you? And
dude,
what the fuck is
and that's why he didn't kill Cassian. It was a Thanos moment, right? Like with Scarlet Witch, the whole, when he talked to Thanos, he goes, I don't even know who you are. It was this Cyril's entire life in this 2 seasons was this obsession with Cassian Andor. I must find him. I must get him. And after all that, to get him beat, to have him on the ground, to be a second away from your revenge, for this man who you have been so bent on, to look at you and go, who are you? You know what I mean? He in that moment just doubted everything. He doesn't even know who the fuck I am.
Because it was a double confirmation of how little he meant in the grand scheme.
Little he meant in the grand scheme of everything, even
everybody. Andor. Yeah, exactly, Andor. Because Andor, to him, Syril was just a guy.
He knew who Deidre was.
One time,
he knew who Deidre was.
Even Deidre, he only cared about her because she was going after Axis or Luthen. So for Syril to find out that to his girlfriend in the ISB, he's basically a nobody. Really means
Nobody.
nothing. And the only
It
reason he's there
all
is
came
because of
crashing
Deidre.
down on him.
And
I'm
then
nobody.
Andor's even like, dude, who the fuck are you? Like, I got so. He's like, for Andor, Syril is just a nobody because he has so many other things on his mind.
Right.
So to see this little scrawny guy get the one up on him, that's why he's like, dude, who are you?
And,
Like,
and honestly, doesn't even remember him. He's like, why you have this hatred towards me? I don't even know who the fuck you are.
I think that's why Syril was hurt even more so, is because Cassian definitely would have remembered what he looked like. He held a gun at the kid's head. Syril didn't get to turn and look at Cassian when that happened.
I know.
But Cassian was looking at him, So it's stuff like that where it is. That's where the beauty, and this was one little,
and his whole world came crashing down. He realized, like you said, that he was meaningless to everybody.
Yeah, and he even he doesn't drop the gun, but he lets his guard down for a second I felt like there was almost going to be a conversation there, and I know there wasn't, but it almost seemed like Syril was about to say something and just be like, "You don't even know who I am," and then he gets shot in the head, dude, by the resistance leader, the old guy,
who blamed him for everything.
Every fucking thing. And that's got to make Syril feel like absolute shit, too. Even
didn't make him feel anything because he's dead. He doesn't even know. It happened so quick. He was looking at Andor and his life ended. He did not know anything.
Yeah. For all he knows, he's still having a massive crisis of life because he's just sitting there like, this guy doesn't know who I am, and then he dies. So the last thing he hears is, "Who are you?" And then he just gets shot. The silence, I mean, this would have been great to see in theaters because the silence after Syril gets shot in the head, I just sat there and I was like, I can't believe they killed him like that.
Well, because in the theater, quick. you would have heard that's what you would have heard.
And then you wouldn't even be able to hear, or you would hear a pin drop. It would have been so quiet because that was one of those moments where you're just like, it's not that he died, it's how he died and the grandness of it. Well, it's also just a small scene too. It's just these two guys fighting, but because you know so much about the characters, because they've been doing this tiptoe dance around each other for season and a half,
and because that one line summed up his entire character,
every single thing, that's why we feel elitist about something like Andor, is because there is so many layers to it that honestly is not that hard to see. Like, if you can't see it, it's one of those things like, I don't know how much more spelling out we got to do here. But if you can't see it, you're just not there yet, brother. It's sad that this hasn't gotten the attention it deserves.
And that's why phenomenal. The people who try to justify dumb shit for stuff they like, what you just didn't get Acolyte. It's no. And then when I look at this I get it, this makes me say, okay, no, you're a fake intellectual.
Yes, absolutely.
You're not.
It's people who say like, "Oh, I'm a really big George Lucas fan." It's like, you ever watch THX 1138? What is that? It's like,
now hold on.
Then shut the fuck. Like,
I didn't watch that shit. I knew it existed.
Okay, there's a difference though, because you can say you're a big Star Wars fan, but then to say you're a big George Lucas fan, are you? Like,
I did watch American Graffiti though. That I know.
Yeah, and that's another, and that's more well known than THX 1138 inexplicably. Even that is considered its own thing. But anyway, I don't want to get on a tangent about any of that shit because I'll talk about George Lucas for hours. But this show does kind of bring that out because, like you're saying, The Acolyte, The Last Jedi, prequels. I know who wrote these. None of those shows, and honestly, none of the people who made them have made anything that was so deep that you're like, oh, I can't understand it, or maybe it makes you think, or anything like that. It's like, no, people just didn't like it because it truly was not executed well. No matter what you like about the story, the dialogue in Revenge of the Sith, though I love the movie, is still really fucking corny and really fucking bad. Doesn't mean I don't like it any less. But with Andor,
and I could have at least said,
you can see that complexity.
Exactly. And with The Acolyte, if it was written like Andor, I may still have not liked the story at the end of the day. Okay?
Yep.
But absolutely. I could at least walk away and go, it was well written. I didn't like the story.
Is such an important distinction today, because this is a conversation I think we need to have as a fandom too, because friend Star Wars editor, his name is Austin and everything, they do like the Wayseekers podcast and everything. I think he's the one who did our logo, come to think of it, many years ago. And he summarized it great, I think, when he was talking about how a lot of people are asking Lucasfilm to make more stuff like Andor. I even made a video of like, look, if you want what's best for Star Wars, you have to tune in for something like this. And people are taking this as, I don't want politics in Star Wars, even though you love the prequels and all the politics shit and everything like that. But whatever. They're like, I don't want this and that. I don't want Star Wars to be like Andor. I want the Sith and the Jedi. It's like, okay, I'm not saying it has to be about the rebellion and the no, make it look like this.
I know, but it's not. Right. Here's the thing: the politics is just the overarching story that's linking everybody. But this was, at the end of the day, not just one. Multiple character-centered stories.
Absolutely. It was basically so many characters. It's like Rangers of the New Republic. If the New Republic was set during the Empire times and everything, and Rangers of the New Rebellion. I mean,
it was such a character-driven story, man.
Me and you could explain the. I don't even know the bellhop's name, but I could tell you basically that guy's life story off of a couple scenes, dude. Of a couple scenes. That
Matter of fact, my first instinct when Syril died was I thought it was him. That was my first instinct.
I did too. I did too. Honestly, too, whenever he saw Cassian for a second, I don't know why, but for a second I was like, does he not recognize him, or is he like playing along? And I like the small little reveal that he's like, he played along. The only thing I didn't like though was the rebellions are built on hope thing.
Well, and because because that line gets repeated because they said it in Rogue One. Because he says that he says that
I remember.
He says that to her, and then she says it.
Yeah, I remember. I remember all of it.
Yeah, you remember? You remember?
There. I remember. God damn it.
But it also shows because I was that scene, I was kind of confused too. And when I think about it, I want to go back and watch it again. I very rarely, we talk about this how many times, I don't rewatch shit, right?
No, this is worth it. Rewatch, bro.
And the only reason why is because he immediately knew who Andor was. Okay, yes. Immediately. Andor, just like Syril, I don't think Andor realized who he was because he sees so many people in his stuff that they become, other than what his target is, everything else becomes background noise.
Well, and I think
I think he doesn't remember
him, but I don't think he thought of it in a deep way. Like
I'll tell you why. If he's part of a spy organization for the rebels and he walked up to the counter, the moment he saw him and he's coming up as a new identity, he would have said, "I can't go up to this counter with this kid." Because he knows that this is not my real name.
No, but he didn't know that he was part of the Gorman resistance. I don't think he was when they first met. I think throughout the year gap that the bellhop joined the resistance. So I think when Cassian walked up to him, I think Cassian
didn't know he was. Recognize him. How? He looked exactly the same. He's just wearing different clothes.
Well, I mean, it's been like a year or so. I don't know. I don't know what Cassian's. The way I looked at it, as I was just like, Cassian's just treating it like
Cassian
nothing.
Didn't know who he was.
I thought he knew who he was.
Which was
for a second didn't think the
just
bellhop
echoes what happened with Syril.
Yeah, but the bellhop actually had an arc to it.
And how inconsequential it makes people. That Imperial Guard that Bix was mad about. We had to kill him. Other people, other than what his target is, everyone else becomes irrelevant.
Yeah, they're cannon fodder. I mean, it's him becoming Luthen slowly over time. Of like, look, man, there's a grand scale to this
but
thing.
Fighting against it, not even cannon fodder. Just like, you're not my issue right now, so he doesn't even paying attention. Like, he's not remembering the details. You know what I mean?
After a while, they just become faces and nightmares. You just get so used to it all. I will say, sticking a little bit on the Gorman massacre, I did like the chaos of it all. It felt very real, and I loved when the K2 droids came out.
Oh,
the K2 droid.
How they killed Enza?
Yeah, when it just grabbed her and then literally tossed her like a little leaf. And it was a brutal death, but it wasn't. It's like a safe Star Wars death. Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen, they got burned alive.
How cats,
you don't see it.
How a cat is with a mouse. How it just tosses it and breaks its neck.
Yeah, that's it. It's simple. And it just tossed her. She died. That was literally it. There was no big glamour about it. She wasn't.
Nope.
What is it? Talia al Ghul in The Dark Knight Rises. She's like, my father will have his, and just passes away. No, she gets thrown, she dies, and then that's it. A lot of the other Gorman people get shot, killed, and everything. There's so much chaos about it. When the K2 droid starts chasing Cassian and Will, and I will say I loved how they did the K2 stuff because it not only made it a cool threat and a very intimidating thing, Cassian taking it. It's one of those things where it's like, what would you do in that situation? And truly, this would be a great asset to the rebellion.
He was about to leave, and then he's like, hey, you know what? Hold on.
I need a favor. He's like, I need one last favor. Because he knows in his heart of hearts, he's like, this is actually going to help the rebellion because that's what he's there for. He's there to help. That's what Cassian's entire life is. He's there to help. he helps people, and that droid would help the rebellion, and even at the they activated and everything like that. Like, it wasn't
How
done
they
in
were
like a
all
very
standing there. He has
corny
his
way.
fucking rocket launcher.
It's just all just ready.
So this is how we're gonna do it. Yep.
They're like, you don't want a goggles? He's like, no,
Goggles.
give me that gun.
The fuck are goggles gonna do?
Well, and I will say, I did even like how the small dialogue of the guy who was working on K2, how he explained it, where he was like, a lot of people think reprogramming, you just kind of flip a switch.
Hardware.
It's actually, it has to kind of be willing to do it. It's
well, that wasn't that. Like, it was him saying I had to do a lot of work. There was physical labor. I had to do.
I like that stuff because it's a small character, but it is everyone. That's what makes this show so real. People like him in the real world, just like Edie, Syril's mom. Women like that who love their kids that much, and embarrass them. This guy is that technical guy you have at work who maybe does IT and everything, and is sitting there explaining to you how he set up. I don't know what a landline or whatever the fuck if we still use those, and is like. Just over talking your ear, and you're like, I don't fucking care.
Speaking of that, because we were talking about, how deep and complex characters are. I want to, because we're used to, in especially original trilogy, right? It was a very black hat, white hat. Okay.
Yeah.
It was very black hat, white hat. Yeah. If you're in the Empire, you're just evil. Period. The end. And we always joked. I was like, well, listen, there was janitors, there was people that work. They're not all evil. They're and. People don't like hearing this, but it's like, okay, people like to think, oh, Nazis, evil. It's like, how many people that were part of the Nazi party and worked there that it was like, they didn't necessarily like it, but what were they going to do?
Yeah, that's why I brought up the whole Edie thing about people being like, oh, she deserved it. It's like she was born into this world. Like she has no idea what the real story is.
Well, she's old enough to remember the Republic before him.
But still, like she's someone who has just believed everything she sees on the TV, just goes about life, and it doesn't pay any attention to that kind of stuff.
She's the Fox News mom. But the one is on Facebook. Believing
oh my God, they're eating the dogs, Syril.
Right.
They're eating the cats. The Gormans, they're eating the cats.
But Glade Flanura said this one comment earlier on. He said, Cyril's a fool, but Deidre is evil. Deidre, I do not believe Deidre is evil. And they actually put it on full display. No, the horror she was feeling. Evil. Okay. Did you say she is?
Yeah, no, she tortured Bix. She's an evil lady. Right.
Here's the thing. There's two things people do, just like, do you think Luthen's evil at that point then? Because it's the same thing. Because her and just how Syril and Andor are mirrors, Luthen and Dedra are mirrors of each other. And
Dedra is what we were just talking about with, like, if you're born in Nazi Germany during that time and you're raised a certain way.
She was raised by the kinder block.
She and Syril both think they are doing the right things to maintain peace.
But hold on. Right. But let deconstruct this. Her whole focus was the rebel group, right? The people who are actively rebels, not citizens of the Empire, not regular people, the rebels. That's what the Axis. Matter of fact, not even all of just Axis. She wanted Axis. Okay, she wanted to find Luthen because she goes, if we cut the head off the snake, everything else will stop. That's what she wanted to get, and because Pendergast was like kept playing with her about how if you do this, just play along, do this, play along, you're gonna get promotion. It's good for you. And she's like, okay. In the back of her mind, you saw when she didn't want to give up access and her lieutenant took over, she still wanted to be part of that. She didn't want to deal with the stuff with Gorman. You know what I mean? And then they went there, and then she's sucked into it. Okay, and she's like, okay, well now I'm here. I have to do all this shit, okay?
And she has to give the command too, which she did not want to do. She
tried delaying it. She tried delaying it. She tried not having to do it to go this way. She figured maybe if I'll be able to figure out another way. And then she realized to her horror that it was her fault because she's the one who told Krennic when he was in that meeting, you already know what the answer is. Just tell me.
Yes, absolutely. You just need to let me know you want me to do it.
Right. And she did that. And that was that moment where we've all been there. You got to make a decision that's good for me, but might hurt other people.
Mm-hmm.
And you make it. And then too little. Again, I'm not saying she's a virtuous person. That's not what I'm saying. But she realized too little too late that what she was doing was not just going to hurt a few people. It literally was genocide, what she did.
Yeah.
And you saw that it wasn't, her breakdown wasn't just about Syril. She wasn't shaking like that because of Syril.
And I think what gets her with this compared to Ferrex is that with Ferrex, she really feels and truthfully thinks she was going after like terrorist. Right? That's what's going on. Gorman, she knew she was setting up.
And they didn't kill everybody in Ferrex. It was a handful of people. It wasn't the same thing as what they did on Gorman.
Didn't they attack the Imperials at first in that one specific? Like that one was an entirely different situation. It was an occupation and everything, just like this.
Again, it's a group. Massacre, again, I'm not saying she's virtuous. She has no problem with killing 15, 20 people. Okay, if they're a part of this group, we kill these 15, 20 people, the rest will fall in line. You know what I mean?
Well, in Gorman, the situation
they opened fire. They opened fire on an innocent crowd of men, women, and even though they didn't show it, I'm pretty sure children. Okay.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
they opened. She had to put an order out for them to open fire on innocent people who were not even part of a rebellion or part of anything. They were just innocent people who were out there singing.
Yeah, they were singing, they were protesting, and I think it's a little bit like the boy in the striped pajamas, where the father, when his son gets out there in that situation and dies, he finally has sympathy for someone else because he realizes that's my boy who just died. That could have been anybody's kid who I just killed, and I think that's how she felt. I don't think
I gotta say this. Like the Gray says, there's a rationalization is someone will do it. I might as well do it. The banality of evil. She's complex but still evil. Well, that case, so is Luthen, because Luthen that was Andor's biggest problem with Luthen. He's like, you're ready to feed Gorman to the wolves, and he's like, if that's what it takes.
Luthen just wants to get to the point. He just wants to get to.
But it was the same thing. He was willing. He was willing to sacrifice all of Gorman. It was the whole ends justify the means. Yeah. Okay, he was willing to sacrifice all of Gorman if the rest of the galaxy was able to rise up and save itself. But he had no problem.
Like, what was the
sacrificing all of them?
Crafer, whatever, from the first season. Him and Saul had the whole debate and discussion where he's like, "You're willing to sacrifice him to save a source at the ISB."
But that's what it shows.
Like, absolutely. And
to
I
me,
like that
evil,
you did bring this up too.
Yeah, go ahead. Evil means is like here, for example, the lieutenant or whatever, the one that said, I'm just a trigger, you're the finger, okay?
Yes.
He's the evil one. You saw him in the window, the smile, looking at what was happening.
He was a crisis handler.
Evil means I have no care of what's happening to these people. Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Okay? Dedra did not, I'm not saying she cared deeply for these people, but she didn't want to see senseless murder either.
Yeah,
okay.
At the end of the day, a lot of these people, especially like her,
evil requires a deep
order,
which is again, it's funny because people have this whole deifying of Anakin Skywalker, who is evil. He killed kids. He did not have to do all that. Okay, he slaughtered them. Okay,
like
and that wasn't the first fucking time he did it to the fucking sand people.
2 movies in a row, he killed those fucking kids. God
and
damn.
He admits the sand people, even innocent ones, the kids that didn't do anything. I don't care. That was in him. It wasn't the emperor that made him do it. Okay, that's evil. There's intent matters. Did she do evil things? Yes. Did she participate in evil? Yes. Should she feel guilty and horrible about it? Yes. And I think they showed that. And I think we might get a character turn from her in the last 3 episodes. I really do. We'll see what happens, but
I'm curious what happens with her. I hope she does.
Everything is not black and white.
Well,
it's not that simple.
It shows it with Luthen and Dedra, kind of like Syril and Andor. It's polar opposites, but they're mirrors. And I do want to bring up The Last Jedi a little bit with it because they tried to do the same thing in The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson, where it's like, Benicio del Toro's like, you see, Finn, both sides profit from war and everything. Who's to say one's right or the other? And that's one of those, yet again, like kind of broad stroke things where it's like, this isn't that deep at all. Like, I mean, one's an empire trying to kill everybody, basically, and one is like the resistance, just fighting for their right to life and party and or whatever the fuck. With this, you kind of have that on a very deeper level of, the rebellion's the right way to go. The rebellion is the right thing. It's like a spiritual thing of good versus evil. And Luthen's doing the dirty work to get to that. He's doing the wrong thing. And that's the debate that Will and Cassian had at the beginning, where he's like, do we really need to do it Luthen's way? And Will's like, do you trust these people? He's like, all they're doing here is getting ready. Luthen's actually making things happen. And that's true. And that's one thing I've loved about Luthen as a character throughout the entire series, is that more often than not, and most of the time, he's always just been right. He has a good instinct about these things, even though he's sometimes doing the wrong stuff. He's pushing people too far. No matter what, he kind of has to trust his gut, and he has to make these he has to treat Lonnie like shit. He has to send Cassian out to do these awful fucking things and treat these people like they're expendable, because he knows if he gets that moral conscience to do the right thing by these people and make sure everybody's okay and happy and safe and everything and care about their concerns, everything's going down. So he has to keep a tight ship. He has to do it the way he has to do it.
And I again, I know I keep going back to this, and I gotta say, if you want to think Dedra's evil, this is when people have to do soul searching. These kind of shows are supposed to make you think. Okay?
Yes, absolutely.
They're supposed to make you, and this is when I say there's nothing wrong with a message as long as it's woven into these, feels like it's part of, and it felt Star Wars. It felt like it was part of this universe. But it makes you think, okay? And I'll give a perfect example. And this is, again, not to get political and not to say one side's right, one side's wrong, this and that. None of that. But here's the thing. If that's evil, it's the same thing as saying immigrants are coming into this country. There's a lot of them that are fleeing oppressive regimes. Their families are dying. It's a very dangerous area. There's gangs. There's rebels. There's people who are literally coming here, lots of them, for asylum. And to say, nope, you got to come in the right way, turn around, go back. And you're sending them back into a place that you know that they could likely die and their children could die. If you think that's evil, then you're kind of participating in an evil act too. Life is fucking complex, man. Sometimes you have to make decisions that are not always great. You know what I mean?
It's always morally gray.
Yes.
You have to toe that fine line of,
and everybody at the end of the day
right.
usually goes to, it's human nature. I know some people can't overcome it, but a lot of times people end up, when their push comes to shove, about what's good for them and theirs. And
absolutely.
And that's what happens.
All you know is do or die, and it's you versus the world. I mean, even if you got a family and everything, like, you're going to protect them, but then you're only extending that out to a couple people. That's just your family, your household. That's not your neighbor. Maybe it is your neighbor, but then that's not your neighborhood.
You see it all the time in the apocalyptic, the zombie shows, and all these other posts all the time.
Everyone fends for themselves. Absolutely. Well, I think the great parallel that you brought up about the show makes you think that I would have made would be the scene with Luke in the Dagobah cave, because it's been 40 odd years at this point, almost 50. Oh my God. And you've never really got an explanation. Why did Luke's face show up in the Vader thing? I mean, there's so many different ways you can interpret that scene.
Because he would become him.
He would, but even still, it's like, would he become him? Was it him? And all this. It made you think.
Well,
it doesn't.
They did play it off.
It makes you think.
And they did pay that off.
It plays off, but it is how you interpret it, though. It's like, okay, so him beating Vader, would that really make him Vader? All that is how he beats him and all that stuff. There's layers to it where, like we just did, it makes us think about it, and that's what this show does with those silent moments with Syril, just sitting in the crowd looking around. Me and you in this just episode, we both interpreted differently. I don't think you interpreted it wrong. You probably think I did, because I think he came to the conclusion that it was cat. But for me, that was like a spiritual thing. I've done shrooms, and there's those moments where you're just standing in a place and you're like, wait a minute, that bunny from earlier is right over there, and then you look and you're like, it's that same fucking bunny. That's that spiritual stuff.
Okay, all right, Donnie Darko.
I'd actually like to be called Donnie Brasco. That was a good looking guy back then. Yeah, damn, that's a great fucking movie too. We've spent so much time on just the massacre stuff and everything. I really don't want to spend too much time on
real quick, by the way. Thank you, KD Miller, for another super sticker.
Oh, thank you very much.
KD coming through every week here. Thank you so much. Much appreciated, man. Go ahead.
I remember. Loyal members. We always remember. The Mon Mothma stuff and the speech and everything like that.
Yeah.
Then that's a whole nother. We could basically do another episode of Chatooine just on that. And so I don't want to spend too much time on it specifically. I do want to say I thought it was very well. Oh, wait. Actually, before we do go to that, we're gonna give a rating for everything at the end as like a 3 episode arc. But do you agree that the episode 8, the Gorman massacre one, I can't remember the actual title, is a 10 out of 10? Like that was perfect.
See, you know, I hate doing that. I
know
hate
you
giving
hate 10.
tens.
Lunga, I've only given out a couple in my entire
Okay, you
life.
want me to
on
bring it down to
anything.
tenths? All right, it was a 9.8.
Okay, hey, that's fair. That's fair.
Okay.
We'll get to the rating over the entire 3 episodes at the end, but I give it a 10, you give it a 9.8. I'm completely satisfied with that. So let's go to episode 9, the Mon Mothma one, where she does the speech and Cassian escapes.
Which again, a lot of build up for that episode too.
And that's another one, is that the fact they gave us 2 bangers back to back. And I will say the 9th one, there's so much to unpack here with this one. I didn't like it as much as everyone else does. Not that I didn't like it or anything like that. I loved it. But to me, the Gorman one was like a 10 out of 10. And this one was like a 9.7, 9.8.
Well, I think it's because it was, again, when you look at something next to something that's so great, no matter how good the next thing is, it's like kind of lost in the shine of the last one. You know,
yeah, so, I don't know. To me, it didn't. If they had just done the entire episode digesting everything that happened, I would have been okay with it. For me, it was the very ending of it, but I understand why they did it, because you had to have that year gap. Bix leaving him at the end, I didn't disagree with it or anything like that, or her going about it. For me, just in that episode, by the time they got back to Yavin, I was so. It's kind of like what George Lucas said about the Phantom Menace in the little rough cut, where he's like, after the pod race, everyone's going to be, exhausted. You got to wrap it up after that and everything. That's how I felt after he escaped with Mon Mothma and they go back to the apartment and everything like that with like everybody in Luthen's team. I was like, damn, they're going back to Yavin and we're still doing more shit. Like, oh my God. Like, I thought we would have wrapped it up by that. That was the only time throughout this entire series
they had to tie it up that loose end. And I really, again, I won't know until we see the last 3 episodes, obviously, but it almost feels like to me, because when we see him in Rogue One, he's really hardened, right? Really hardened by the time he gets to Rogue One. Almost like Luthen, when you think about it, the way he was in Rogue One.
I was trying to tease that earlier because I do feel like that's happening. He is becoming Luthen.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think Bix leaving is the final straw. He severs all heart ties, severs all heart connections, you know what I mean? And it's just the job now. It's the job.
Well, Bix leaving too, honestly, I think was the most natural way for that relationship to even end, honestly. I didn't want her to die, not just because I care about the character and she's
I think she's still gonna die. I think she's gonna find out she's dead in the next one, or something's off screen, or something's gonna happen like that. And he's gonna find out about it, and it's gonna be what really makes him.
I think every now and then we should have a happily ever after. I hope she finds a man named Star Wars Only, and they get married, and they just.
She's not leaving the rebellion. She's literally going full force into the rebellion. She's just not gonna be with him.
No, she said, "I don't know where I'm going," and I don't. She's going off to do her own thing. She literally said, she's like, "I don't know where the road's taking me," or anything like that.
I gotta look at it again, but she said something about that being with the rebellion.
No, her leaving is so he can commit to the rebellion. That's why she left. Is she realized, especially after the Force healer thing, she's like, okay, this is confirmation to me that he has a bigger part to play in all this, and it's bigger than me, and it actually means something. And I know in my heart of hearts. It's a Satine thing of like, if you had asked, I would have left the order for you. But Satine knows that, Obi-Wan's supposed to be a fucking Jedi. That's how Bix is feeling about Cassian. She's like, look, you have just literally had a person who's gotten touched by like the Force gods of the universe to say that like this person means something in the grand scheme of things. We're keeping him around for that. He has a part to play in destiny and all that shit. And Bix seeing that, I think, has a lot of relief. Really, where she's like, okay, like there is something special about him, and I don't want to take that, and I love him, but this is what he's meant to do, and this was
an ultimate self-sacrifice.
Absolutely, and it was sad. I mean, it didn't choke me up or anything, but it definitely made me say, oh yeah, I didn't bring up Syril's mom on that last episode. But
her last, because that's what choked you up. You said
that. When it cut to her and her friends and she's watching on TV and then you just see her eyes and she's got tears, that's when that's when you feel that lump in your throat where you're like, ooh, that hurt.
I wondered if off air they show like if they did a list, because one thing, again, I know we're going back again a little bit, but the one thing I really did enjoy is when you just kept showing the new, because what really kept ratcheting up the tension is what the on the field news reporters were saying was literally reflecting what was going on with that character that you're just showing. Like when he's saying, you know, he was I forgot exactly the words, but he's talking about how, you know, no people aren't sure what's going on here. This is hacking up, and that's when Syril walks into the frame, and it's literally what he's feeling at that moment.
Because
you know what that reporter was saying.
Yeah,
right. You know, and it was very. It still felt like Star Wars, right? But it was very. It felt like I was watching CNN. It felt like a news broadcast.
Yes, it felt like real people. It felt like real. Like that's why.
And that's a good thing.
So emotional. Yes,
it didn't feel
you
jarring.
Want these people to feel relatable. You know,
okay,
you want
it
these
felt
people to feel like you would know them.
Yeah, it felt like Here's the perfect word: familiar. It was part of Star Wars. It was in the Star Wars universe. It didn't feel out of place, but it felt familiar. And that's the problem with the stuff in the Acolyte. It's not that the stuff was the problem, is you didn't make it feel familiar. You went, Frah! And shoved it in my face. You know what I mean?
We went to the same set for the Jedi Temple every goddamn scene, you know,
right.
As opposed to this where everything's different. It's
exactly.
But
the sky and Coruscant, I mean, you see the sky. The sky, bro.
The TIE fighters flying over and everything, really, everything's just beautiful in Andor. And even her little apartment, you know, the two ladies her friends are sitting by her getting her tea, and like she's like leaning on one. And
what makes you wonder if at like 9/11, if they put up like a list of names of people that were lost,
bro,
and this and that.
It's a big thing, and like it just, dude, like it doesn't get me now, but man, when I saw her crying, bro, I had to take a minute. I was like, I can't.
And you felt bad, even though what a horrible mother she was. You still felt bad for her,
and that's even more of the reason why it hurts so much, is because she feels like such a real person.
Well,
There's a lot
to be
of
fair,
moms like that you see in.
She's the one who kept wanting
movies.
him not to be there. She kept the one who kept.
That's the ultimate irony of all of it. The whole Uncle Harlow stuff. Constantly pushing, like, in her knowing that she probably didn't do the best job as a mother. She probably maybe didn't love him enough or loved him too much, kind of thing. Like, just so many dynamics to it that
maybe his life might have been boring, but he still would have been content if he listened to his mother. Maybe that's the takeaway, right?
And he'd also be alive. And unfortunately, men and everyone who's got a mom still, as you get older, you kind of learn mother is normally right. You know, your parents know a thing or two because they've seen a thing or two. Oh, speaking of moms, Mon Mothma. I don't think we're ever going to see her kid again. I heard that there was a cut
I know
scene.
What happened to her husband in all this.
Yeah, that's another thing. There's a cut scene apparently that Mon Mothma goes back to her apartment, and her husband Perrin is like, "Yeah, this is like what happened because of you. Like, you know, congratulations. I'm glad you did this whole thing."
So it's an estranged thing. She runs out to be leader of rebellion, and they're estranged. Basically,
yeah. I mean, she clearly has no choice at that point. But I like the escape. I thought everything with that was cool. I thought that also was able to have a lot of tense moments. The speech,
I like the driver being an agent for them, and
I loved how the driver became like a little bit more important as the show went on.
Yeah.
But also that Cassian just shot him. He's like, "What's his name? Clovis."
Yeah.
He's like, Clovis. We feel, and Mon Mothma is just shocked.
Because it became real.
Two people in front. Yes,
it became real.
And that's
everything for her with the rebellion was all on paper.
Yes, she came at it, and not in a bad way, but from a rich person's perspective of like, she's making all the big moves, all the power plays, and everything like that. She means the most, but she's not Cassian. Cassian's the one she's sending out to do the fights, whether she knows it or not. He's the one who actually has to go out there. And even the scene with Luthen and her talking, where she's like, she's like, I'm scared of you right now. Like, I don't know if I can trust you, kind of.
Because she thought she was going to be another Tay.
Yeah, and she said that scared her too. She was like, "Yeah, you just killed him. Like, what the hell? Like,
is that what's going to happen to me? Basically,
yeah." She's like, I had no time to digest that at all, you know. And I get it, you know. That's really intense for her, because I don't think she's ever really seen anybody get killed like that in front of her. But they do that shit quick. He
did it so fast. No hesitation.
He killed the ISB agent first, right? He killed her after she.
Well, no, Erskine did that.
Like
Erskine shot him.
You're right. No, I think Cassian killed her. Cassian shot her, and then Erskine got the gun.
I'd have to look at it again, because he's the one. Erskine looked at her and said, "She's a rebel spy."
And then Cassian pulled out.
Is this a Han and Greedo who shot first? I swore it was Erskine that shot.
No. But he shot. No. Cassian shot her. She dropped.
Okay.
Erskine got the gun from her after her body dropped on the floor. And then I think and he was like, "Don't worry, I'll handle this," or whatever the hell, to buy them some time.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have to rewatch it again.
Yeah, and that one's a good one too. I don't think I rewatched it. I really only rewatched the Gorman Massacre up to this episode that we're doing tonight, just because I was like, I want to see it again just to see if there's anything I missed. And there's a couple things. The one with the Mothma stuff, like I said, because the Gorman one was so much to digest, I was like, damn, it's hard to really, talk
there was a
about
lot going on there.
But
just the fact that they even got, like, Bale has his own tight knit group because he's part of this. He like,
yes.
At the end of the day, he's as in deep, obviously, as Mon Mothma is too, and he's in just as much danger as she is, and he has his agents just like she does, and usually all people from Alderaan. And how they got an ISB agent in the middle of that is, which if they did that, that tells me they already know that Ball is part of it. That Bale's
part of it. Yeah, absolutely, like they are laying. There's so many layers to it of secrecy and everything. And there's one small part I liked about it. The ISB like supervisor guy, he's like the equivalent to Deidre. He had to like run the whole show, and he basically showed up. Yeah. He's like, all right. He's like, I'm in the middle of lunch. What's going on? And they're like, oh, the other guy's not here. And he's like, okay. And so then he ends up spending the entire day just dealing with the whole thing. I don't know what it is, but like,
and all these little
like
shit that happens. They break the bug, right? And they're trying to figure it out. And that one little low level guy is the one's like, we have a problem. You know what I mean? And he's trying to tell everybody about it.
Can't wait until the next guy comes in for his shift. I have to deal with this. And he's like, no, and it becomes a really big deal. And he's like, can you guys shut down the system? And they're like, no, they repaired the door today. He's like, are you kidding
those
me?
people
You can't shut down.
The people now, because I've heard other people talk about it. Like, so were they more of Luthen's people, low level people that purposely did it, or were they just people that were just tired of dealing with these fuckers?
I think they were. I think they were Bail Organa's people. Honestly, I think there was some stuff set up through.
Well, no, Luthen. He might have been. Yeah, he was part of it too. But we don't know. It could have been Luthen or him, either one. But yeah, there were people that worked there, and they purposely fixed a door that hadn't been fixed the whole time. And got it.
I like that they also revealed who the ISB agent was kind of quickly and early. Didn't make it that big of a deal, but like one of the guys finds out. He's like, "Who are you talking to? Let me see that." And she's like, "All right, fine." And she shoots him. Like it gets intense, and that builds that tension. And then when she just reveals, this is it. Them running away from the Imperials and everything like that, like stuff like that.
The third guy of Ball's crew. It's I'm no. It's I wasn't part of this.
He's like, I am good. Please, for the love of God, do not kill me. But I there's so many things that are great about the show. I keep remembering stuff that it's like so good. The shot after he kills Clovis, they're like running down the stairs, and it just kind of pans out a little bit, and you see them running down the stairs to like, oh my God. Dude.
And the funny part about it is you see them running down the stairs, and along the course-way, people are just walking normally, like nothing's happening. They're just
and that's another one of those smart small details with like Cassian, where he's telling Mon Mothma, "Don't run. We need to walk with intent, but we need to walk normally and like you belong."
Goodfellas or Godfather, when you tell him shoot it, don't run, just drop the gun at your side and walk out.
Just walk out. That's what makes the show feel so real, because that's how a lot of people in the real world, that's how you go about doing that stuff and everything. I've done illegal stuff and everything. When I act and it look normal, you don't walk like you just did something illegal. You walk like a normal fucking person.
That draws attention.
Exactly. You got to act like you belong. Truly. That's how I've snuck into so many shit at like these conventions with all these Comic Cons and stuff and everything.
And can
I know what I'm doing.
They expertly were able to incorporate what went on in Rebels with the Ghost and take it without needing cameos, without needing them there. Like they weren't ignored. God. They weren't ignored. They weren't tossed aside like it didn't happen. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, and what would have happened if Dave Filoni had wrote this show is, Cassian would have been like, I need a team to help me, get you back. And then he would have
know someone.
I'll do it. And who are you? I'm Kanan Jarrus, Jedi Knight. Who's that? I'm Ezra Bridger, Jedi Padawan.
This is our ship, the Ghost.
And I'm Ahsoka Tano. Fucking course, god damn it. See, this is, and it's so funny too, because I think we talked about it last week. I love that Dave Filoni at Celebration was like, I gotta compare this shit.
Why it has to be like Gold Squadron that gets the credit.
It's about
instead of him.
appearances and everything.
Yeah, he has to stay in the background. He's their undercover,
and it
spy
kind of
organization
undermines
guy.
Rebels a little bit too. It shows you the Dave Filoni and Tony Gilroy parallels, where it's like, the kids are gonna drop her off, and it's gonna be a big ordeal. But we know you basically killed
You're
and
the
did
one
all
that
the
is,
work,
yeah.
Cassian. Thank you. Tony Gilroy made a great Star Wars show, and people will only think about Dave Filoni. Oh, Dave Filoni's the best it's ever been. Meanwhile, Andor's like riding laps around anything that Dave Filoni has done. It's absolutely insane. It's so funny. Dave Filoni has spent almost 20 years expanding the character of Ahsoka Tano, yet I care more about that goddamn bellhop from Cassian Andor than I do about Ahsoka after 20 damn years. Ranga, let's wrap this up because we could spend all night talking about this, and there's so
many layers to this.
week.
So many layers, man. If we had a full panel with all of us here, oh my god,
this would have been a 3-hour stream. It would have been a 3-hour stream. It would have been too much. So give me your rating for this 3-episode arc.
It's back up there with the first one, man. It's a 9.5, if not higher.
Yeah, for me, I'm going higher. I'm doing that cheat stuff about the tenths and everything. I give it a 9.7. I'm giving it a 9.7. It's just that goddamn good. And so we both agree season 2 is better than season 1 so far.
Yes.
Unless they just completely drop the ball with the last 3 episodes. Do you think it's safe to claim, like we did at the beginning of the show? Because I think everything we say is basically objectively truth throughout the lexicon of things. Andor is the greatest Star Wars show ever.
Oh yes. It is the greatest Star Wars show ever. I know this might be heresy. Writing wise, it's better than anything fucking George wrote. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, it's
that
George.
includes the original.
George.
That includes the original trilogy. Okay. So
here's the thing. Here's the thing. You can love, and this is where a lot of people misunderstand. I don't want to say layers of filmmaking, everything like that. But let me give you a quick example about Tales of the Underworld, and maybe you can tell me, oh yeah, this is a certified banger. When you watch it, I want you to tell me if you feel the same about it. Dave Filoni wrote the story for the Ventress episodes. I did not like the story. However, I think it was a well-written arc because the guy named Matt whatever wrote it, but Dave Filoni wrote the story. Look at you could even say like Return of the Jedi. It's like the story's solid. Maybe the writing wasn't all that great, or maybe the story's not that solid, but the writing's really good, and that's why. Because there's those kind of layers of like, okay, you may not like the story of Andor, but you can't deny it's so well written, and I think that's what you're hinting at here with it in the original trilogy, especially the prequels and even the sequels and everything. It's like, okay, you may not think this is what peak Star Wars is because it doesn't have the lightsabers and the Jedi, but it's better written than all the other stuff that's come before.
And here's what's hard. It's like the original trilogy. It's my childhood, right? There's that nostalgia. Okay,
absolutely.
There is that nostalgia, and it's what started it all. None of this would exist if it wasn't for that. Okay, and it gave us iconic characters that we fell in love with. Okay. And it was in its simplicity great. Okay. Because it had a very simple story. Good versus evil. You know what I mean? It yes, there were layers to it, and people liked to disassemble it, and George, those the Tibetan monks and samurais, and also the Viet Cong, because he said to James Cameron.
Did you know when the Ewoks were dancing on the graves of the stormtroopers, it was a parallel to the Viet Cong?
Like here's the thing. Like, were all these ideas in his head? I mean, I've written stuff, so I understand the process. What people don't get is when a writer says, oh yeah, I have these ideas in my head, I have these inspirations in my head, it doesn't mean he's doing a 1-for-1.
Absolutely.
Okay,
George Nolfi, who's writing the new Ray movie, said that.
Yeah, it's just all the stuff that was in his head when he thought about things. You know what I mean? And like when he talked about the Viet Cong, that's when they did Yavin 4. If you look at those temples, they look like the temples in Vietnam.
Yeah. Okay, and it's broad strokes, allegories and stuff like that. This isn't in depth political analysis and everything. He can make all the George Bush references he wants to the prequels and everything. No one watched The Phantom Menace in 1999 and went, it's actually a parallel to George Bush and what's happening with the Iraqi war.
That was years later when people really overanalyzed it, and and like I said, to me, there's a nostalgia thing there, and it's very simplicity. But again, if I had to compare, not on my nostalgia, not on my love for things as a child, not on my love for something that's become iconic to me. If I just look at it one for one, writing, this is well written than anything in Star Wars. It is the best written thing.
And the reason it is too is because it's very cohesive, and it takes the simplicity of Star Wars and makes it like, honest to God, if in an alternate universe they had made episodes 4, 5, and 6, and then made Andor right after, oh God, Star Wars would be a different brand entirely. It would be,
but it wouldn't work because it would have been written. It still would have been in the same vein. Do you get what I'm saying? It was a different time.
No, but I'm talking. It would have to been Tony Gilroy who did it. Is what I'm saying. Like that's the alternate universe. Like Tony Gilroy does what he just did.
But even though writing is writing, and there's still certain tropes that endure through all the years of movie making and stuff like that, they are still products of their time. And the way stories were told in the 70s and 80s are different than the way they're told now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, you definitely never would have had a show like this back then. That they never did anything this long form, drawn out, dramatized kind of thing.
And I mean, that's the thing, even with Star Wars, let's think about it. I mean, it was actually Jaws that did it first. But the reason why Star Wars became what it did is because it played nationwide on multiple screens. Before Jaws, technically, because Jaws did it right before Star Wars. Before that, it was like a theater production. It would come to one city, play in a bunch of screens, and then it would move to another city.
Was so big; it went on for like 5 fucking years. It just traveled the entire country, and it was so big, and it kept going back to certain cities
because they only had so many rolls of those film reels, so they went from one city to another to another. You know what I mean? But Jaws was the first one to open nationwide in like thousands of screens.
Yeah.
And
then Star Wars opened on a lot less, but then and then there's another thing too, is it stayed in theaters for like a year straight. They don't do that a lot anymore, but some of these movies would stay in theaters for a long time, and that added because it had a rewatchability to it and everything. Yeah. So I mean,
and again, there weren't as many movies coming out like there are now. For sure. So you could afford to do that because back then, how many movies came out in a year? 10, at most of between all the studios. You know what I mean?
Major movies and shit like that. Absolutely. Yeah. The small indie film stuff was coming out every week.
Nowadays, we're getting 5 or 6 movies a month, that come out from all the studios.
And those are just the Marvel movies. That's not including all the real movies.
But yeah, it was so good. And it's up there.
It is the GOAT. It is better than Mandalorian, but like we said earlier, covering this whole conversation, is that they're both a different approach in Star Wars, and we love both of them for it.
And that I'm okay with. If someone says to me, I like Mandalorian better because I like the story better. I like the idea of the gunslinger. I like the idea of the
enjoy the Mandalorian. That's more than I like Andor.
That's a type of story thing. That's a preference. That's fine.
The Mandalorian's a lot more fun. I mean, it's
but don't come to me and say Mandalorian was better written. Don't say that.
No, it's
just
not
don't
even
say
remotely true. I mean, Robert Rodriguez and Dave Filoni have directed episodes in The Mandalorian. They couldn't do second unit on the. No, who the fuck am I to say any of this? I couldn't even walk onto a goddamn set with any fucking authority. I couldn't even be a PA today. But anywho, what I wanted to wrap it up with was this is the greatest Star Wars series of all time. The best Disney Star Wars product. Yes, it's very well written. I don't really care about predictions for next week because damn, it's coming to an end. Dang, I thought there was something on the tip of my tongue I wanted to say.
And we know it's an end because he dies in Rogue One. This is it.
Yeah, no. There ain't no coming back from this one. Yeah, fuck. I wish I'm gonna remember the second we end the stream, and I'm gonna yell at myself when I do. No, absolutely.
You know what we gotta hope for, even though we know he says he's kind of done. We just hope that he comes back to do something else.
Bro. First of all, he got paid bank for Rogue One. I don't think people realize he made millions on making Rogue One.
Well, and he came in to save it too.
Exactly. That's why he made so much. I think. Oh my God, if I was Kathleen Kennedy, Disney, or Luke, I would be Tony. I'll take your brother Dan. I'll take John as editor. Like, what do I need to do to get you to stay? Please. And I think that's what's so disheartening about Andor right now. Oh, that's what I was going to say earlier. I still hold firm now that if they had only done The Mandalorian in 2019 and then Andor after that, Star Wars would be in a far better place right now.
Oh, yeah.
In this era, yes.
That would have been
night and
because
fucking day.
it would have because Andor would have profited on the popularity of Mandalorian.
Absolutely. And Andor honestly was hurt by things like the Acolyte, hurt by Boba Fett, Kenobi, and everything. All these big names.
It might have gave people a better view of Disney in general, the Disney era of Star Wars.
Absolutely.
Even though we know what the movies would happen, but people would have been in a better place.
Well, and that's how I think me and you kind of normally approach these kind of things. Like, I could sit here for days and truly tell you how heartbreaking it is to see someone like Luke Skywalker, my favorite character, be, in my opinion, just botched in The Last Jedi. I mean, it really is. That's one of those things where it's like, I'm never going to be able to forgive that. Like, not because like it's some ill will towards Rian Johnson. It's like, you don't understand like how gutting and disappointing. That's like being told all your life, you look up to your dad. And then when you turn 40, you realize your dad is like some serial killer or something like that. And you're just like, oh my God, like that's my dad. Like, what the hell? So you can't take that disappointment and hurt or away from what's already happened with Star Wars.
And what they don't know, people like that don't understand. Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. But what people don't understand what it is that was the end of Luke Skywalker. That's how you ended him. Like,
yes, yeah.
Like if you did that story in the middle, like this is something he went through.
Even in the EU, he went to the dark side for a little bit, you know, and he did it with good intentions to help defeat the Emperor, whatever the fuck, it doesn't matter. But yeah, it's like, we've waited all this time to see Luke, and this is how you do it. Yeah, I could spend an hour telling you how disappointing I am with that. Darth Plagueis, one of my favorite, maybe my second or third favorite Sith of all time. A couple second cameo in the Acolyte, and it really ruins a lot. It's just a lot of it's extremely disappointing. Don't get me wrong, but me and you are able to go
put your big boy pants on and move on.
Yeah, but not only move on, call a spade a spade. Andor is fantastic, and if you can't see that, bro, that is one of those things where it's like you're just not there yet. Either you don't get it or you'll never get it. And I'm not saying as in you're not smart enough or you're too dumb. Some of the stuff like this is like when you get older and you start appreciating older films, or you start watching things that are outside your normal. So you start liking different music and everything. You mature in life, you know? I think Andor is Star Wars maturing in its own way. But maybe the fandom doesn't want to mature with it yet, but we'll see. We will be back next Thursday covering the finale. And after that, I think we're just done with Star Wars forever, right? I mean, there's nothing coming out after forever. Like, what else is there to say? Like,
not forever, guys. Not forever.
If I don't see Gilroy attached to the end of it, I'm never watching Star Wars again. God damn it.
Yeah, I mean,
funny coincidence. Henry Gilroy wrote the Clone Wars, and he's not even a Gilroy brother. So you have Tony Gilroy, who saved Rogue One, alongside his brother John Gilroy, who came in and co-edited. Then you have Tony and Dan Gilroy, who both worked on Andor and wrote it. And then you have Henry Gilroy, who wrote for the Clone Wars, some of the best episodes in that. So if a name ain't Gilroy, it ain't shit. Sorry. It just ain't
unless it's Vince Gilligan, and then you'll be here.
If they came out and said like, yeah, we're doing a Star Wars live action series with Vince Gilligan as a showrunner, there's not a person in the world who could stop me from setting up that interview. I will do what I got to do. I mean, I'll send letter after letter. I'll be banging on Vince's door.
As far as announced, what the next thing coming up is the movie, right?
That's what I've been saying, bro. After Andor season 2, the only thing that's coming next is the movie, and then after that, Ahsoka season 2, and then nothing other than Starfighter, of course. But like shows, we're done. You're done, son. It's Ahsoka season.
Again, there might be stuff. I mean, there's Visions, but Visions is Visions.
There's going to be stuff, but there's nothing of importance until probably a trailer for Mando and Grogu.
I wouldn't be surprised if late this year, right around the holidays, we get an announcement of something coming spring of next year before Mando, before the movie.
I wouldn't be surprised either, but it wouldn't be anything big. It wouldn't be like a live action show or anything.
It might even be this summer they announce it. They might even announce something this summer for spring. Early spring next year.
No, if they're going to announce anything, it's going to be in fall around like August time when they do D23, or it'll be probably in December.
That's not fall. Like August is not fall, bro. August is summer.
No, whatever the fuck, same goddamn difference. It's the month where things transition. Okay,
and technically, especially here in Chicago, September is still summer. The fall doesn't start until October.
Chicago is not a real place, all right? The weather out there is made...
What do you know? It's summer 9 months of the year for you.
It's fucking amazing. Oh, my God. Every day I wake up, and I just piss excellence out here in fucking Florida. I'm like, yo, the weather's just astonishingly beautiful. It's just humid as fuck. It's so humid.
What you're pissing is sweat out of every fucking pore of your body.
Yeah, if you show up here on a Monday, you leave on a Friday, you won't be dry those entire days that you're here. All right, you just expect to stay wet. Yeah, let's get the fuck out of here.
Let's stick a knife in this.
Shout out to all those channel members, and we'll see you next Thursday night for the finale.
Yeah.
And then after that, we will keep you what do they call it? In the know. I don't know. But yeah, we'll see you all next week. Thanks for tuning in. May the force be with you always.